I think Korean people tend to often be driven by fear, whereas Americans often tend to be driven by goals or dreams or even impossible aspirations. So one of my favorite things is whenever a piece of American culture gets picked up by America, especially by the American media. Things like, when Gangnam Style came out, it was kind of funny, and my American friends who didn't know much about Korea were asking me questions. What does this mean? What is this about? Things like that, which was fun. But more often than not, the thing that penetrates into the American media is North Korea. Whenever North Korea does some new belligerent act, whenever they threaten to shoot a missile, or when they do actually shoot a missile into the ocean, something like that, the American media will pick it up for a day, 2 days, maybe a week, and then it'll be kind of in the news. And when it is, there will be a news anchor, and he'll give you the general story, and then he'll do a live interview with somebody who's a reporter who's actually in Seoul, and he'll do a standard interview. What did Kim Jong-un do? What is North Korea threatening? What happened? Blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, they always ask, okay, and the anchor asks the guy, and how exactly are the South Korean people taking this? And the answer is always funny, because the interviewee has to say, well, the South Korean people basically don't give a shit. And it's funny because, in our mind as Americans, we think like North Korea is this very scary threat. And even though we're in America and they can possibly, or maybe not possibly, launch a weapon at us, we're scared. So it must be that South Korean people are super scared, right? And it turns out that South Korean people generally aren't. And I think it's really awesome, this ability. It's very stoic. There's a word we use, stoic, which means, there's not much you can do about it, so fuck it. Don't be afraid. There's no reason to be afraid. It's useless to be afraid. And I wish Korean people would feel that way about a lot more things. I think a lot of times Korean people are driven by fear, and Americans are usually driven by some kind of goal or ambition. And Korean people think, well, yeah, that's great. What an awesome culture where people are driven by goals and ambition, which is kind of nice, but it definitely has its downsides. And it sounds bad when I say Korean people are driven by fear, but honestly, there's a lot of perks to it. The best example I can give about this general being driven by fear in Korea versus being driven by ambition and goals and stuff in America is the way that Korean people and Americans look at entering university. I think Korean people see entering university as something they must do or else they're fucked. Whereas I think Americans see entering university as a means of getting a leg up over people, as a means of making a better life than if they don't go to university, maybe, possibly, but not necessarily. Korean people think, I think, in general, that if you don't go to a good college, you won't get a good job, then you won't get married, and then you won't have kids, and then you're fucked and your life is over. And Korean people are generally afraid of that outcome. Whereas I think Americans, when we go to college, we think, hey, this is an opportunity to do something fun and amazing, and then I can get my life goal of being a journalist or psychologist or an engineer, or whatever the heck our goal is. And when we think about we don't think about, oh man, if I don't do this, I won't get married. We think, well, maybe if I do this, I could get married. And if I don't get married, who gives a fuck? We're not afraid of the outcome of not getting married and not getting a good job and not having kids and things like that. And it sounds bad when I say fear-driven. It sounds just a bad phrase, but honestly, fear can be a very useful motivator. I think Americans are often not afraid enough, so when we go to college, we end up not majoring in STEM-type majors, which actually have a useful outcome and can get you a good job. STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math. Those majors can get you to be an engineer or a scientist or something that society really needs and thus has a lot of jobs for, and thus those jobs are necessary, and America ends up not having a lot of those jobs, and we have to import a lot of engineers and scientists from other countries because our native population is not afraid of the outcome of going to college and not studying STEM. So it is useful to have some fears as a motivation, but there's definitely some downsides to having fear as a motivator. Number one, you can really make some mistakes if fear is your primary motivation. The best example I can think of is 9/11. When 9/11 happened in America, for that day, week, month, year, we were so afraid. We were afraid there was going to be another attack, maybe. We weren't sure if that was a one-off event or if this was going to be a common thing, that airplanes were going to get hijacked all the time and used as weapons. We didn't know if there was going to be bombs in the subways of New York, or we didn't know what was going on. And because of that fear, we ended up relinquishing a lot of our privacy, a lot of our laws for freedoms and liberties. We gave them up, and we let our Congress take away a lot of those freedoms because we were just so afraid. And I think that was a mistake, for sure. I mean, look at the TSA at airports. They're not very effective. I've seen studies where they let in, people can get in 95% of contraband when they test them, and so it's not very effective, and it costs a huge amount of money. Every time you go to the airport, it's super annoying. They infringe on your privacy because they can, I think they could strip search you, they pat you down, they pat down old ladies, and it's just not a good situation. You can see how that fear drove us to a bad decision, which was kind of having crazy airport security. Not just does it drive you to bad decisions, but I think it gets people to not take risks they should take. I think Korean people end up being very risk averse because of this fear. Like, you could even see it within our language, because in English, for Americans, we often see risk as an opportunity. Yeah, it might be dangerous, but in the end, it could be a really great outcome. We have a saying in English, which is no risk, no reward. If you don't go out and do something dangerous, you'll never be great. You'll never have great things. You'll never be happy. You'll never have the good outcomes you want. Whereas I think in Korean, you guys have a word for risk, which is 위험, which also means danger, which is a really danger or bad warning or whatever. And I think this language is really indicative of the two cultures, where Korean people see risk as this thing you shouldn't do and it's dangerous and stay away from it. And we see it as this thing that's an opportunity to get to our dream or a goal or a desire that we really want. The best example I can give is a long time ago when I was like 13 or so. I had an older friend who was 16, and I lived in San Diego, and he lived in Thousand Oaks, which is like a suburb to the north of LA. And it was summertime, and my mom let me stay with him for like 1 or 2 weeks, and it was like super fun, cool time, because he was 16. In America, you could drive, and he had a car, and we were just amazingly free. As a 13-year-old, you don't get this kind of freedom very often. It was awesome to have this freedom. And one of the things we did with this freedom was, me and my friend and some of his friends, we drove down to Malibu Beach, which is in LA, kind of near where he lives, and we spent the night on the beach. So we went there when it was, actually the beach was already closed, and there were signs everywhere saying, no parking, don't come on the beach, no sleeping on the beach. That was all over the place. Beach opens at this time, blah, blah, blah. And we ignored it, and we took the risk, and we slept there out on the beach, and it was one of the best memories of my life, honestly. We woke up when the sun came over the hill. We just had an amazing, awesome time, and it's a memory that I will cherish really for the rest of my life. And I can't imagine Korean people doing that. I could not imagine Korean people taking that risk, going against all the rules with all the signs everywhere, and going out there and sleeping on the beach, because, like I said, Korean people are very risk averse. And I think often Korean people don't see the end result of what a successfully done risk could look like, which for me, was an amazing experience. So in the end, I really wish Korean people would be a little more risk-taking. It's okay to be fear-driven, but not to be so afraid of everything. I really just wish that Korean people would look at a lot of fear and risk-taking the same way that they look at North Korea, which is, it's not a big deal, just go for it, enjoy life, and don't worry about it. So if you like my video, give it a thumbs up. If you hate my video, give it a thumbs down. If you love me or hate me, hit the subscribe button. This video is a little, controversial. I guess I'm really kind of criticizing Korean people and Korean culture. So if you hate me, leave the comments below about how dumb and stupid I am. If you agree with what I say right on, 공감해요, 잘 보고 있었어요, whatever. And there's also a chat room where you can talk to me and tell me how stupid I am or how much you enjoy my videos, and there's a link to join it right down below in the description. Remember, these videos come out every Friday at 7 p.m. So it's after 7 p.m. and it's a Friday. There's a new video, and you should check it out. And of course, the most important thing of all, have a super awesome day.
창화 그리고 김유리 덕분에 저는 이런 영상을 만들 수 있습니다.
여러분의 지원 덕분에 이번 영상을 제작할 수 있었습니다.